Got the Department of Education on its way out. And look, I'm in the third hour of the show. We haven't talked 1 second about what's been going on with foreign policy, so it's a perfect time to talk to David Hamilton from America's Future Series. Welcome back, David Hamilton. And look, it's been very busy for you the last couple of months of all the things that are going on. What do you think is the most important foreign policy issue going on right now? Is it Russia, Ukraine? Is it Gaza? Is it the Houthi rebels? Is it the border? What's at the top of your list?
So there's probably a difference between urgent and important.
Okay.
So right now, Russia and Ukraine are very urgent, and some of the things going on in the Middle East are very urgent. Ultimately, the single biggest thing we should care about is the Chinese situation in the United States. They are really the ultimate threat. Russia is sort of a middleweight. If we're talking boxing, they're not really a true superpower. China is. Certainly, they are a thorn in our side and Ukraine's. But my feeling about it has always been that we need to settle this. We need to stop having this war, this third or fourth front in Central Europe, so that we can ultimately focus on the big picture, which is the Chinese desire to literally take over the world.
Yeah, we have such a weird relationship, David Hamilton, with Russia, because in the middle of all like the Cold War for all those years, and now whatever tumult we've had for the last 3 years, we've still shared an international space station with these guys. And the astronauts up there, some of them are Russian, some of them are American. They never get in slap fights or play thump knuckles or anything dumb. It's weird we can get along in that arena and then not so well back here on Earth.
Well, we're at best frenemies, right? We compete with each other, et cetera. But this is sort of a big brother, smaller brother situation. They don't have the economy there. They don't have a lot of capabilities. They have some great capabilities, mind you. They're not without their own scientists, et cetera, technological innovation. Some of their weaponry is fantastic. But, this issue needs to get resolved. And it was even, as we've talked on your show a couple of times, Putin a couple of years said, let's get rid of NATO, or let's have Russia join NATO, so we can start becoming better economic partners. As we've said, you don't tend to kill people that you do a lot of business with. They want to sell oil and gas to Europe. They want that pipeline put back. They need a partner for economic trade. They would like to have normalized relations and trade with us, but because of this, they've in some ways been forced into the very open arms of China. China needs their oil and gas. And China has no compunction one way or the other about who's right, who's wrong, whatever. They only see everything through the lines of what's best for China. So I am glad that we are talking. These negotiations are going to be difficult. Russia is horrifically hard to deal with in terms of negotiations. They're really good at it. They're really good at propaganda. And every time you start negotiations, except for on a ceasefire, there's a tendency to try to take as much land and grab as much as you can to sort of freeze the borders at where you last had them. So that's why we're seeing this conflict that we're seeing here in these weeks right now, as we lead up hopefully to a true ceasefire and an ultimate settlement. There's always a push to grab as much as you can get. You saw that when Patton ran to the east to get as much of Germany as we could at the end of World War II.
Well, I have seen pictures fly through my computer screen and when I'm scrolling through my phone of some new attacks that have happened in the Ukrainian-Russia fallout. I guess this ceasefire isn't really much of a ceasefire anymore.
No, it's a prelude to a ceasefire, and the Ukrainians attacked and had a very successful attack on a strategic bomber base, and caused a huge explosion of munitions, and from their perspective.
Was this the drone attack I saw the pictures of?
No, I'm not exactly sure. Most of their attacks are by drones if they're going long distance, so they don't have the capability to get there any other way. So, yeah, we would assume that this is by drones, and it was apparently pretty successful. The Russians have countered, et cetera. And it's like the last throws at the end of a round. If you think of it in a round in boxing, people are trying to score as many points as they can at the end of the round.
I see. Well, man, there was a lot of destruction from those drones. I've only seen them, for the most part, take pictures, maybe deliver a pizza or something. So we're entering a new nasty phase of drone warfare. I mean, are fighter pilots just obsolete at this point?
Well, there is an entire push in the military to get rid of all fighter pilots at some point. There are people that counter saying, no, you have to have them. There's a hybrid strategy, which is you have a few pilots. You want to have a few of those as possible, and they are protected by a sea, if you will, of a flotilla of drones around them. But we would like to get as many human beings out of these potential death traps as possible. Of course, there are big arguments in the Air Force, especially about that. My biggest concern about the negotiations we're having right now is, President Trump has had this sort of isolationist, let's get out of wars kind of strategy, which I think a lot of us are in favor of. We'd like to see us not involved in so many. I do worry when we offer to take over the control of the largest nuclear plant in Central Europe and Europe and take responsibility for that. That puts sort of a target on our back. So I'll be interested to see how that plays out. There is a strategy that says if we're running it, that maybe the Russians wouldn't attack it as likely.
Yeah.
I get that. But then that kind of puts you between you and the bear, right?
Right, yeah, right. Well, you don't seem to sound too concerned about this latest attack, the drone attack, derailing the peace talks between Russia and Ukraine. This is just like the end of the slap. Like, I thought that was a great metaphor there, the final round of a boxing match.
Yeah, so you and I talked about this before. It's hopeful that we're having these discussions. It's better than not. Those who said you can never negotiate with Russia, I'm not in agreement with. You have to negotiate with them, but you have to not trust and verify. I don't trust and verify, right?
Okay.
Trust but verify. We need to not trust, and we have to be skeptical, and we have to push. They are going to ask, and they've done this forever. They've always asked for way more than they're going to get in a Trumpian-esque way. So now you've got two Trumps doing the same thing.
I see. All right, David Hamilton, what's going on in America's Future Series these days?
Well, very excited. The America's Future Series is now part of the University of North Texas's system. All of our programming and things are now under the National Security and Economic Strategy Center that we're standing up. And so that event we've been talking about will be a sort of a launch of the too many letters, National Security and Economic Strategy Center. Again, it's your birthday, and I'm buying you the first 2 or 3 drinks if I can get you out there.
Yeah, that'll be on May 8th. I can remember that. Thank you very much,
yes,
David Hamilton. Find him online, America's Future Series. I appreciate your foreign policy expertise, sir.
Thank you.
Sometimes I feel like I only pull these audio clips because you'll think I'm lying. It doesn't add anything to the discussion, really, except for, is that really what she said? Are you taking this out of context? I don't know. That doesn't sound very believable because... Look, I'm not a person that thinks Jasmine Crockett, she's stupid, she's an idiot. I am a person who sees Jasmine Crockett make all of these claims that just aren't founded in reality. Like you voted for Trump because you support white supremacy or racism or you hate women or whatever. No, you don't. So she's never actually arguing against us. She's never arguing against you. She's never actually taking the positions that you hold and debating them. She's always doing this straw man. Oh, really? That's not what you believe. You believe this, and then I'm going to go attack this, and meanwhile, you're left unscathed. So I actually haven't heard her make a compelling case for what she believes, for bigger government, for liberalism, why conservatism is bad, why libertarianism is bad, why, free market constitution, all that stuff's bad. So I have optimism for her. And then sometimes she says stuff like this. This was 2 days ago.
How many of you are sending your kids to college to go and work on them? Okay, well, guess who is working the farms? So that you can afford your food.
So that you can have food.
So that you can have food.
Have food.
Now, how many of you are looking to send your kids into hospitality after this college education so that they can go and make the beds at the hotels? How many of you are planning to send your kids to college? Because that's what we do here. We send everybody to college. How many of you are planning to send your kids to college so that they can then go and build these houses? So the reality is that so long as we live in a capitalist society, there's always going to be someone or a group of people that will do work that some of the rest of y'all don't want to do. These are the people that are really making us great in this country.
Now, I'm simultaneously rolling my eyes, but also it instills a little bit of optimism here. Because the argument she was making, I don't know if you're like listening on a scratchy AM far away, she was saying, how many of you are sending your kids to college so they can go make the beds in the hospitality industry? Who's going to do that? How many of y'all are sending your kids to college so they can go work on the farms and provide you with food? Well, pretty much nobody is sending their kids to college. They're not taking on a $80,000, $100,000 worth of expense so their kid can go make beds for a living. So who's going to do that? Oh, I don't know. Maybe the 70% of kids that graduate high school and can't read on level, maybe some of them could make it better too. We're not going to starve without illegal immigrants. You know, America did just fine, somehow managing to feed ourselves. And in fact, we make more food than we can eat. We are the biggest exporter of food on the planet. And we were so before we had mass, unfettered, illegal immigration. But what level of sort of classist, elitist thinking is this? I don't know what the proper word is, but to think that your people or... You know, this country is so stupid. We couldn't even feed ourselves. We couldn't even get it done. Or maybe not stupid, maybe just lazy or unskilled or think we're too good to work on a farm. And these people from these other countries, they're good. Without them, we would starve. So we're actually dependent on these people. We need these people. No, we don't. No, we don't. And so I don't know if she actually believes this. Does she really think we would starve without illegal immigrants working in the farms? Does she? How did America make it this long without mass illegal immigration? That's so strange. So I don't know if she actually believes that, but I love this idea that, you know, no one sends their kid to college to work on a farm. Well, you know what? Some of them do, actually. Some of them send their kids to A&M, so when they come back, they know how to test the soil to see if it's too acidic or too basic, and we need to add some lime to the soil, and then we need to use this fertilizer, and then we've got to watch for the runoff, and then we need to know how to work these combines, which combines to buy, which market to take it to, which silo is going to give you the best idea. Do y'all even know what I'm talking about with the grain silo? Have y'all ever even messed with that? I don't know. I know a lot of you people are country people. I feel like city people have no idea what I'm talking about. But yeah, some people do go get 4, 5, 6 years at A&M or some other college so they can run a farm, so they can work on a farm. And most of what's done on farms these days is done with machines and doesn't even need illegals. In fact, as the days go along, we need illegals to pick our crops less and less and less. Go on YouTube. Here's a fun one. Have you ever seen the machine that picks carrots? Sean, have you ever seen the machine that picks carrots? It's amazing. It is so cool. You're like, this isn't real. This looks like a Bugs Bunny cartoon. This is like Bugs Bunny's dream. You know how he likes carrots? You know, this is like this machine. It's just pulling up thousands of carrots like every hour. It's pulling up hundreds of carrots every minute. Go look at that. Tell me if we really need illegals or we're going to starve. Hell, we can just eat carrots and corn and wheat. Do you even know how our crops are harvested, Miss Crockett? My next guest hails from the DallasExpress.com. It is one of the handful of news sources that is on the regular rotation every day. I go to the DallasExpress.com when I'm prepared for a show. Chris Putnam, welcome back, sir.
Hey, James. Good to hear from you.
I want to start with a specifically non-DFW, non-Texas story. Well, I guess it is kind of a DFW Texas story. The Kennedy files release. It's just, I don't know. It's the guy that shot him's from New Orleans. You can't blame us. But I saw you going off on social media about how the Oliver Stone movie, JFK, sounds like it was pretty on point from what we've learned. Explain, because I'm sort of a JFK novice. I try and talk in depth about this, and then someone calls in who clearly knows more than me, so I'm not going to pretend like I'm an expert. What have you learned from this?
Well, let me start with this. So at the Dallas Express, our publisher, Monty Bennett, is a very well-known hotelier. Hundreds of luxury hotels all over the country, and one of them happens to be the Fort Worth Hilton, which was the hotel that Jack and Jackie stayed at the last night of his life, sadly. And so we're very interested in all things JFK at the Dallas Express. What I'll say is, like, in the early 90s when that movie came out, I thought Oliver Stone was a kook. Like, just a far left-wing kook, and this stuff was just complete fiction. And of course, as the years gone by, we've learned maybe not so much. Here's what we know, right? So what we do know from the JFK files so far, and there's a lot to sort through, and they haven't released all of it yet. There's more coming. Is that The CIA was clearly involved somehow. Whether it was, they were the architects of the assassination or not is maybe still a question, but they were involved. I thought the most shocking revelation was the fact that Jack Ruby had met with Lee Harvey Oswald weeks before the assassination. It's right there in the files. They were seen together at a club, I think. I don't know if it was his club, the Carousel Club, but they were definitely seen together. And the other thing that the files revealed is that, it's almost conclusive that there was a second shooter, at least one other shooter, maybe more. And so when you start to piece all that together, it's just absolutely clear there was a conspiracy. We've been lied to for over 60 years. And when you piece that together with things that we've experienced here, in the last decade or so, COVID origins, vaccine efficacy, whether or not they were real vaccines or not, and whether or not those vaccines, actually harm people versus help people, Russiagate, all of these things were, of course, formulated by our own government. And so to me, it's just like it's an incredible story. It validates, everything that we've been living through for, the past 8 years, at least since 2016, that our government has been lying to us this entire time about a lot of things. And that was that was really the root cause of it. And I always go back to what Eisenhower said as he left office, his caution that we had to watch, the military industrial complex. And what he was basically saying is that our bureaucracies have grown out of our control. And I think we've been literally living through that now for, since 2016. And this is just reinforcement of that. And to me, it's just extraordinary that there's not more conversation going on about it.
Chris Putnam, what is the CIA's motive to get rid of JFK?
All I can do is speculate. I don't know.
Well, that's what we're all doing. Fair enough.
I guess at this point, I'm going to trust. Yeah, I'm going to trust Oliver Stone at this point. Like, he was, back to Eisenhower's warning, right? He was trying to get us out of a lot of these wars. It's so interesting because it's so analogous to kind of the themes and narratives that we're seeing today with the Trump administration, right? We need to focus on what we're doing, and it's not about profiteering, to be in all these foreign wars on behalf of defense contractors or the quote unquote military industrial complex. And so, what's funny is, like, again, I was the biggest skeptic of all. And at this point, like, I'm willing to accept some of these narratives, and at least until we know something differently.
Well, here's the other parallel that I'm more concerned about. How much does this match the fact pattern of Butler, Pennsylvania, and the attempted assassination there?
I think there's a lot of questions. Butler, as well as Las Vegas, as you know, there's never been a firm motive established there. There's a lot of questions when you start digging into it. And, whether it's the left or the mainstream media, like whatever the institution is. And then there's plenty of, let's call it establishment Republicans, people call it the uniparty, whatever, that have a financial vested interest in a lot of these things, particularly around defense spending, as you know. And what I'd say is, like, I think everything is now open for discussion. Every time we hear, something cited as a conspiracy theory, it ends up being true. I mean, COVID origins, Wuhan lab versus, wet market down the street with bats. Like, it's not even a question at this point. And so I think we're at this really interesting time and inflection point in American history where we have to acknowledge that we have been lied to for a long time about a lot of things. Joe Biden's mental capacity, Hunter Biden's laptop, on and on and on and on. And so I think the American public has an absolute right to question everything now.
Yeah, it's kind of hard to argue with any of that. Wish I had more time, but there's an amazing story here. Some lady stole COVID funds to the tune of $240 million. You sure you have that number right? That is a huge number, even for pandemic relief.
Yeah, I'm not as close to that story, but I'll definitely go double check it and understand.
We're kind of out of time
what
anyway.
The source information was, but but what I was going to tell you is, like, what we do know from the last 2 months, from digging into the graft and the corruption and the greed at places like USAID, which is effectively a money laundering scheme for a number of politicians as well as mainstream media outlets. What's going on literally right now at the U.S. Institute of Peace, it's just fully corrupt.
Yeah.
And we're past the point where anybody can debate that. Like, it's all out there in the open at this point.
Well, the crazy part about your story on DallasExpress.com is how huge the numbers are. Another good story I wish we had time for was the story about Alex Stein, who you've heard on the James Show a few times here. He has the case against Dallas County Judge Clay Jenkins. Yeah, a ton of good stuff. Go check it out when you get a chance, DallasExpress.com. Chris Putnam, I appreciate your time, sir. So there is the next James Show listener meetup. It's going to be at Plano Sports Tavern this coming Tuesday, about 7-ish, but you don't have to be on time. It's not like we're doing anything important. So if you don't show up until 8 or 8:30 or 9 or 9:30, you're not going to miss anything. The only thing you really want to be there for is the giveaways. I didn't know I was going to have any giveaways, and so I asked the guy who runs the promotions department here, hey, can you just give me some little tchotchkes or something to give away? And so he's like, yeah, I'll go raid the prize closet, see what we got. Well, there's not a whole lot of just great prizes laying around. So, I mean, he gave me some stuff, and at the bottom of the bag was a stack of CDs, and I was almost embarrassed. I was like, what the hell, CDs? When's the last time? Who wants a CD in 2025? And then I saw what the CD was, and it took me back in time. It took me back when there was, I think it was the year 2000, 99 or 2000. My grandmother gave me her spare car because mine died, and it was a 73 Comet. It was mustard yellow. It looked like baby poop. And all it had was an AM radio. It didn't have a tape deck or a CD player or even like a little place to put in an 8-track. It was a sure enough AM-only radio. It had one speaker in the dash, nothing like in the back or in the doors or anything. And so I listened to WBAP a lot for a 23-year-old. And, you know, there was some other stations. Like that's how I got so hooked on the ticket as well. And I used to hear these awesome bits. And now I'm going to be giving away a CD of some of the bits that I was listening to 25 years ago, including Dallas radio legendary bits like Sam from Sales. So I only have a handful of these CDs. I'm going to give away one. That's going to be the grand prize for the event on Tuesday. One. But you probably know some of these other bits. Pedro from Payroll, Haywood Yasumi, Reverend Bob, Breakfast with Betty. But, I hear a lot of people remember Sam from Sales. There's a few of his bits on here. It's a CD that WBAP put out in 2001. It's got 22 tracks on it, 22 different bits. And I think 1, 2, 3 of them are Sam from Sales. Yeah, 3. So that's pretty amazing. I am honored to give that out. I'm kind of blown away myself, and you're lucky I just don't keep them all. But it's going to be at the Plano Sports Tavern, March 25th, 7 p.m. It's at the corner of Parker and Custer. And come on out. And we're not going to be doing a whole lot. You don't have to dress up nice. You don't have to wear a tie. And just meet me and a bunch of people just like yourself in Plano Sports Tavern coming up on Tuesday, and maybe win a legendary piece of WBAP history. All right, that's going to do it for me. I'm James Parker. This has been The James Show. Stick around. Mark Levin's coming up after the news. You're listening to News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3.